Yay! We did it! Congrats, Justin!
Yes!
Sharon! Okay, so now what I need to do is to share the link of the StreamYard kina Doc Dex.
Yes. Wait lang.
Oh,
Kailangan ko din
nice.
i-record.
Hello.
Ay, hindi. Masasave naman to, no? Sa StreamYard.
I-air mo na siya sa Facebook natin.
Okay. Sige.
So, pag nag-FB live siya, mare-record siya sa FB live.
I-ayusin ko muna yung ano natin. Mga ganap. Ay, ang ganda!
Ang ganda.
Oh my God, Justin, meron tayong natutunan this week.
Galing.
Wow! Okay naman yung colors natin.
Yeah. Hello po sa early joiners.
Yeah, hindi ko nakikita. Wait lang, hindi ko nakikita.
Hello po, magandang tanghali po.
Hello po.
Nakapag-lunch na po ba lahat?
Yan. Yeah. So, siguro, and then, Justin, pwede tayo no? Pwede tayo mag-share ng screen.
Pwede.
Oo
So,
nga.
say for example, later, pwede mo bang i-test ngayon? Share mo yung in focus natin.
In focus. Hold on. I'll open the website. Focus here.
Okay. So, hindi na ako makakapag-type kasi what I did was, I joined Kumu on my iPhone because my Android's mic has given up. That's why I had no audio last week. So now the host account, which is on my Android, is the one who aired the live. Eh dati, yung Android, yung iPhone account ko, yun yung pinapasok ko sa kumu.live para makapag-type ako ng mga chat. Hindi kasi pwede habang nagsistream ka, nagta-type. You know what I mean? Ang complicated. Anyway, good morning.
Let me try going to Kumu Live now.
Yeah, pero
Yan, I'm
nakaano pa
sharing
sa...
my screen.
Oo nga pala.
Ayan, oh my God. Good morning po sa inyong lahat. I think this May... Thank you, Maze. Nice to see you again.
Thank you for
Thank you for
joining
sharing
us.
the live, Maze. Oh my gosh. Yeah. Sana Maze sa kwentuhan next week. Makasama ka namin. Let us know please. I-message mo ang Hello Dr. PH dito sa Kumu. Kung pwede kang mag-join sa amin next week. Kasi gusto naman namin this year na kasama namin kayo sa kwentuhan. Okay?
Yes.
So, yeah, talagang pwede mo namang
napakagandang article naman po pinapakita natin. Ito po dahil malapit ng International Women's Day. If mag-visit po kayo sa website, marami pong magandang women empowerment articles. Ayan yung letter from our editor Kai about standing strong, breaking the bias. Yan. Share nyo lang po itong page nito.
I-set up ko lang yung ating Facebook Live.
Sige, take your time.
Maganda po yung letter na sinulat ng aming country lead, si Kai. Basahin niyo po. Very inspiring.
Makapagpagdamdamin.
Sige, let's simulan na natin yung sige. Hintayin ko na si Doc Dex lang si Doc Via. Excited na tuloy ako magkwentuhan dito sa Kumu. Pero kung hindi pa nare-record kung hindi pa naka-live sa FB, di ba?
Wait lang, ito na. Ayan. Ayusin ko lang yung setup.
Thank you, guys. Gusto ko po para po sa benefit ng mga nakikinig yung early joiners natin. Si Ate Bianchi po ang ating interim EIC. No? Papunta na po siya doon sa pagiging EIC ng Hello Doctor na dati ko pong ginampanan. Ngayon po, nag-a-adjust din po ako sa bagong role na country lead na hindi po posible kung wala yung suporta ni Ate Bianch tsaka ni Ate Justin. Ate Justin.
Ate lahat.
Para tayong batibot. Ate,
Ate
kuya.
lahat.
Kuya Justin, ate
Oo,
lahat.
kasi, di ba, ang Hello Doctor team po kasi, approachable po ko to lahat. Wala po kayo mamimit na, wala na po, na hindi madali kausap.
Yes,
So, kung meron po
ano lang,
kayo,
segue lang kay, we are live
ah,
on Facebook. Yes!
Oh!
Hello sa Facebook viewers and Kumu viewers.
hindi na
Magandang
lang nakaligo
tanghali.
ako. Sinabi ko pa talaga yun. Ayun, sige. No, so nice. So, bakit ba, let's start with International Women's Month. Para siguro yung warm-up ng kwentuhan natin. What are you, parang bilang babae, what are you proud of, Ate Bianch?
Yung siguro ang first thing that comes to mind is yung resilience natin. Just to tie it to health, kasi there are so many experiences na unique sa babae. Of course, men also have their health concerns and their journey, ganyan. Pero to women kasi, at a young age, di ba, we have menstruation. You have to deal with so many issues early on in life na parang nakaka-proud din na parang at a young age. Kaya nga sinasabi minsan mas nagmamature agad ang girls kasi we had to be. So, yun, I think yun yung most proud. Siguro dahil eldest din ako sa family. So, parang yun yung nag-speak to me. Yung resilience mo, yung toughness mo, yung quiet strength, kumbaga, to endure.
Yes.
Yun talaga. Bilang
Hi, Doc
ate.
Dex!
Hi, Doc Dex!
Hi, Doc Dex! Good morning. Doc Dex, nag-send ako sa iyo ng link nitong live natin kasi we're broadcasting on the Facebook page of Hello Doctor. I don't know how to cross-post to Alaga Health.
No problem.
Dami nating channels, no? Live sa 2 channel.
Yeah, surprise parang gift namin to kay na Doc Dex kasi naisip namin ni Justin habang sobrang love natin po syempre ang team ng Alaga Health at ng Experto Play Labs. Parang gusto rin naman namin gumawa ng part para makatulong kay na Doc Dex, kay Doc V, kay Glenn, my favorite, kay Alana. Tapos meron pang sa Doc Dex meron pang isang girl.
Si Alana.
Other than Alana, there was another girl who helped us.
Shane.
Si Shane, yun. So, surprise updates, parang tutulong na rin kami sa effort namin na madagdagan yung content din ng Alaga Health, no?
Thank you.
Yeah, so while waiting for Doc V, tinanong ko si Ate Bianch kung what is she most proud of as a woman. Siguro before we proceed to our discussion on women's health, ako naman proud ako kasi, paano ba? Bilang babae, pinalaki ako ng tatay ko na parang lalaki. Okay? Parang I'm not going to make it a competition between the two genders. I just know that I have 4 brothers, and my dad didn't raise me like his daddy's little girl. He raised me like I was one of the boys. So when I was younger, I hated it. Okay, I resented my dad for that because he never coddled me. He never came to my rescue. Even as a kid, pag may problema ako sa school, I had to fix it on my own. And then, without knowing, I would become a single parent. And now, I'm very grateful na parang naisip ko, buti na lang. Kasi ngayon ginagapan ako dual role din naman, no? Bilang isang tatay at isang nanay. So anyway, usapang women's health tayo today dahil kahapon nagsimula ang Women's Month. March 8 po, International Women's Day. At syempre po, actually sa March 10 ay National Buntis Day. No? So before we begin the discussion, we'll take this opportunity to plug. On Friday po, episode 1 na po ng Okay Doc with Doc Dex Galban, the Real Nutrition Doctor. Ang i-discuss po niya ay ang pagkain o nutrisyon para sa mga buntis, pati sa mga nagbe-breastfeed. No? Mag-air po ito sa Hello Doctor, Fridays at 8 o'clock. Hello Doctor, Alaga Health, and Experto Play Labs Facebook page. Pati na rin po ang Facebook page ni Doc Dex Galban, which is Ask Doc Dex. Alright, so let's start. Doc Dex G, with all the advancements and in health and sciences, diba? And yung women's rights, women's liberation, ganyan, yung movement doon. Ano pa ba yung problema sa health ng mga babae na hanggang ngayon, paano ba? Marami pang nagsasuffer, lalo na sa mga Filipino women.
One of the biggest concerns that women still face would be lack of access to quality reproductive health services. That's one. No? That's why the Commission on Population and Development, the DOH, are actively pushing for that. Kasi one of the key metrics of success ng bawat bansa, makikita yan in any major development blueprint, women's health. Why? Kasi yung maternal and child care, yung paglago ng isang bansa, yung pag-manage ng mga tao, they're fully dependent on the power of women, the welfare of women. So a metric that we measure would be what is your maternal mortality rate, di ba? O kaya naman, what is the fertility rate? These metrics are all driven by women. And that is why at the center of population management, of country development, nandun talaga yung mga kababaihan. So nakikita natin there is still a bit of a concern when it comes to accessing quality sexual and reproductive health services, accessing your condoms, accessing implants, accessing alternative ways for you to manage your reproductive health. Pati yung mismong information, di ba? Parang it's very difficult for them to easily access. And buti na lang, nandiyan na yung hellodoctor.com.ph to provide that additional information. And Alaga Health will be there to bring you to your OBs and the like. Plus, on top of that, major concern pa din yung mental health and well-being. And this is something that people would usually throw under the rug, yung mga concerns ng mga kababaihan. Sasabihin nila, kaya mainit ang ulo, kaya nagdadrama kasi may period. O kaya naman, kaya ganyan ang ugali kasi monthly buwan ang dalaw niya. So, dapat kebs lang tayo. Not knowing that these are cries for help and that there is a legitimate concern na kailangang ma-address for women, especially when it comes to mental health and well-being. So, those are just two of the many other aspects of healthcare na kailangan pa din ng support ng ating mga kababaihan. And building on what we said last week, even the laws that we have regarding the protection of women still need improving, particularly our definition of rape, our definition of violence against women, among many other things. This is a good time to talk about that.
What about why is it important? So let's divide the discussion between those two issues that Doc Dex raised. So what about reproductive health is still a problem, Doc Dex? And how can yung mga nanonood sa atin ngayon para ma-address ito, sana bumaba yung problema sa reproductive health? Ano ang kailangan nilang malaman?
One of the biggest issues that we have is that there is still a perception that men have to control and manage the reproductive health of women. That's a big concern, primarily in our relatively patriarchal society, na it doesn't matter kung ano gusto ni Mrs. or choice ni Mrs. o kaya yung plans niya for herself, her body, her future. Always, somehow, especially when you are in classes C, D, and E, there is a higher tendency that the women are very much influenced, pushed, and or controlled by the decisions of the men. So, hindi siya partnership. And one of the things that we need to champion and push, and this is something na pinusupport din namin in government, is the fact that we have a responsible partnership and responsible fatherhood. Bakit dalawa? One, a partnership between the husband and the wife, for example, in the context of the male-female dynamic, and good modeling on how men should treat women in the context of the home and, of course, in health, para ma-model nung anak na lalaki at anak na babae. And it's very key that these things be done hindi lang sa context ng community, ng, let's say, health center, etc., but also the workplace. That's why even government has programs na nagsusulong ng responsible fatherhood and parenthood sa ating mga workplaces mismo. Kasi if it's only the women that are going to address issues about women, then it's not going to be as effective. We need both men, women, and every other member of the spectrum to champion the rights and welfare of our women.
Ayan. So, kaya siya nakatie in doon sa topic natin last week, which was
Nakatali
diba?
siya. Yeah.
Kasi kung feeling ng society na responsibilidad lang ng babae yung kanyang reproductive health, talagang magkakaroon ng abuso kasi they don't feel accountable. No, they don't share in the accountability for our reproductive health. So that's kasi I'm sure Kumu is, sobrang sikat nito not just sa mga younger millennials pati sa mga Gen Z. Doc Dex, anong age dapat mag-umpisang maging aware, no? 'Di ba kasi ano ba yung age na nagsisimulang magkaregla, for example, ang babae, no? Anong age dapat maging aware sa reproductive health ang isang dalagitan, no? And syempre ang danger kasi nito is ang ingay-ingay na ng web, no? Ang daming app, ang daming mga tinatawag na influencer that not necessarily give you are good influences, no? Just because we call them influencers, are they good influences? Maybe not. So, ayun, Doc Dex, para sa mga nanonood na baka manonood tayo dito ng dalagita or mga nanay ng mga adolescents, no? Anong age dapat magkaroon ng awareness? And paano kaya sisimulan ng parents yung discussion with their family, diba, or their loved one? Kasi part din ng culture natin na medyo, hindi ko alam ba't nahihiya pa rin tayo pag-usapan ng reproductive health, sexual health with our kids. Para bang we'd rather that they get gusto niyo po ba makuha nila yung impormasyon nila sa ibang tao, lalo na sa internet? Diba? So, ayun, Doc Dex, what do you think?
Yeah. Very relevant question kasi actually, Ms. Kay, I'm taking my master's right now in public management in Ateneo. And this is actually my capstone endeavor in collaboration with Popcom. We're trying to find out what is the best channel for sexual health and reproductive health education for our target demographic, yung mga kabataan that are more prone to teenage pregnancy, etc. So, let's answer it one by one. What is the appropriate age? The truth of the matter is there is no single appropriate age for you to learn about reproductive health. It just has to be age appropriate. So ibig sabihin, you can be talking about teenage pregnancy, you can talk about sex or the bodily functions at every stage. Pero the way that you approach it must be age appropriate. Right? The depth of engagement, yung terms that you use, yung frequency, all those will have to be tweaked and managed according to one, yung edad ng bata, no? It has to be tweaked based on what they already know. It's building on something that they already know. Second, it has to be culturally appropriate and sensitive. One of the biggest concerns that we noted sa aming studies and sa aming engagements in public service is that in different parts of the Philippines, culture has a major impact on how people perceive health, especially if you're dealing, for example, with our friends that are of a different religion from what the teacher is conducting or believes in. Yung mga cultural norms na yon will have an impact. And that is why it's very important for us to highlight that when you are teaching, it has to be purposive and it has to be collaborative kasi ang daming moving parts. Now, next would be what would be the best way for you to conduct such learnings for young people, young women, no? And based on our initial data, yes, I'm spoiling my own defense. The best pa rin in the Philippines is actually Facebook. As far, yun yung terms of yung reach. Because that is something that a lot of people very much engage with still. They had years to build that up. But here's an interesting thing. Platforms that offer streaming and at the same time short clips, among others, for example, TikTok, or in the Philippines' case, platforms like Kumu. Hi, Kumu. We are actually seeing an uptick in the engagement of young Filipinos. So I think there is a huge opportunity here for us to tell more people about reproductive health and women's health as a whole. So this is a wonderful platform. Thank you, hello, Doctor, for setting this up.
Okay, syempre na, hi Doc V!
Hi, Doc V.
Hi, Doc V.
Welcome.
Gandang
Nice
tanghali.
Doc V. Okay. Next time,
Good
Doc V, malalaman
afternoon
namin.
yeah, sa ating lahat. Na Miss Kai, Miss Bianchi, Sir Justin, it's so good to see you again after a week. No? And ang ganda ng pag-uusapan natin ngayon. Apologies for my tardiness. I didn't know you were supposed to use StreamYard, but then again, yeah.
Yeah.
Nakuha ko naman yung memo. Late nga lang, pero nakuha ko yung memo. So, I'm excited to talk to you about anything and everything about women and, women empowerment.
Yeah,
Yes.
kakatapos lang mag-i-address ni Doc Dex yung questions namin tungkol sa issues ng reproductive health dito sa Philippines, Doc. Siyempre nagulat ako, nagma-masters pa pala si Doc Dex. Kulang pa kasi yung ginagawa niya. So, ma-challenge tayo, di ba?
Hindi siya masyadong busy.
Yeah.
Guys.
Hindi siya busy.
Pure energy talaga.
Madaming time si
Unlimited
Doc Max.
energy.
Oo,
Bringing
hindi siya
energy,
masyadong
Doc.
busy.
Oo, di ba? Next time makita ko si Doc Dex, kailangan mag-connect kami para makuha ko ng konti yung
Oh, yung energy
niya.
sa gusto.
Pa-recharge po.
Oo.
Pahingi po ng
Hindi ng
energy.
energy.
Yeah. So, yeah, thank you for that, Doc Dex.
Thank you, Doc
Actually,
Dex.
we just had a meeting yesterday ni Justin with Paul of Kumu, and of course, we have the support of Victoria, the Vice President for Marketing of Kumu. And I think that is something that we can work on. That is another project that we can work on with
Yeah.
Kumu, no? To
Sex
support
ed.
your thesis din. Yeah. Tsaka DepEd, no? To support the thesis of Doc Dex. Yeah. Okay. So, Doc dito lang. Ate B, Justin, you have questions
Yeah.
for Doc
Yeah.
Dex and Doc Via.
Oh, nice nga that you asked kasi similar siya to what I wanted to ask. Yung what age, yung sex ed. Kasi during my time, parang I started high school, mga 99, 2000, ganun. So, I'm aging myself. Pero at the time, yung sex ed was unheard of. I mean, sa health class namin, mga third year, fourth year na siya dinidiscuss, hindi younger. So, but I had friends back then who were considering being sexually active, but there were limited sources. So, we would sneak in mga women's magazines sa bathroom, mga ganon. Ang question ko right now for someone watching, a young person watching, what would you tell them if they're planning to be sexually active now? What advice would you give them? Mental health prep or ano po bang kailangan paghandaan if a young person decides na it's time for them to be sexually active?
Okay. First
A
and
young
foremost,
woman.
first and foremost, sasabihin ko sa kanya, I'm very happy that you're opening up about your intent as well as your plans regarding your sexual health and reproductive health. So I would definitely highlight that it is something that is normal. It is something that is done as a way to express your sexuality and possibly plan a family. But apart from that, I'll be requesting for a couple of minutes just so that when he or she decides to engage in sexual act, they know exactly the consequences. I will never tell them don't do it. I will never tell them stop. Why? Because the more that you tell someone to stop, the more that they are going to be, oh, intriguing. Ay, bakit bawal? Maganda ba yun? Masarap ba yun? Amazing ba yun? Of course, that's something that will really make them curious. Matry nga. So if your intent was really to discourage them or probably to make them think twice, outright saying no is going to be less effective. one of the things that we found to be very helpful is that we lay down the cards. What would happen? What are the chances? What are the opportunities lost? Like, for example, when you are based on our latest data, a young person, particularly a woman, when a woman gets pregnant early and is not able to return to school and finish, is earning significantly less than the average pay of someone who did not get pregnant early and was able to finish school. And I believe the discrepancy is parang 27 pesos yung did not finish school, in contrast to the usual 460 plus pesos for those who were able to finish school. In terms of difference, ang laki nun, right? And that is why teenage pregnancy, for example, is one of the reasons why the Philippines is losing a lot of lifetime value for our citizens. Kasi instead of them being productive, they're unable to finish school, they're unable to join the workforce. Major problem yun for our country. That's why we invest in terms of addressing it. Now, going back to the question.
Billions yung Doc Dex, no? Yung
Sorry?
losses. Yung in a grander scale to the tune of billions yung nawawala.
Yes.
Because of,
yes.
yeah.
I believe that the number is about 33. Yeah. Billion. So actually, it's the equivalent of, it's roughly the equivalent of Bayanihan 1. That's roughly the amount that we lose when it comes to teenage pregnancy. So ganun siya kalaking issue. So when it comes to us being able to address that, a good way to approach it would be to lay out ano yung immediate ramifications niya. Are you actually having fun? Of course, you have to highlight the truth. Kasi it's built on trust. Very sensitive topic kasi sa mga Pilipino. When you talk about issues such as this, and you skip out on the parts that are essential, they will think you're lying. Like you suddenly claim that, ay, bawal yun, pang matanda lang yun, or parang it's not a fun experience, or it's not good. Yet, they can easily access that kind of information online through the internet. And you need to provide a sense of trust so that they are more open and receptive when it comes to you laying down the actual realities na apart from those amazing, fun, good things, these are the consequences that can happen. But it's still up to you to decide. So we found that to be more effective than outright saying no.
Thanks, Doc Dex.
Yes po. Ikaw po,
Justin,
Doc,
baka you have question?
sige po. So napag-usapan po natin yung contraception, suppose early teenage pregnancy, ganyan. Ano po bang, paano po natin sisimulan yung conversation on contraception sa kanila? Ano po ba yung mga dapat na i-advise po natin sa kanila? Ano po yung pwede nating sabihin? Like, pwede magpe-pills na po ba sila? Magka-condoms? Yun po.
Okay. This is a very popcorn episode. I love it. So, when it comes to approaching the issue of contraceptives, actually we prefer the term family planning para medyo mas broad, no? We actually first entertain all of their questions regarding sexual health and reproductive health, and then give them the entire picture of what can happen. And then we frame our contraceptives or family planning methods as solutions or as ways for them to strike a good balance and a middle ground, no? And one of the things that we also highlight is that we link them to the health services that are available locally. We have teen centers that are being set up by POPCOM and different SKs. The LGUs work with DOH to give access to reproductive health products along with POPCOM, etc. So we need to channel them towards the institutions and people that can help them. Kasi in the Philippines, and this is a big part of the reproductive health law that was taken out, government, for example, cannot provide reproductive health goods and or services in its entirety to people who are underage. right? But the thing is, the big concern is that yung teenage population natin, yun yung tumataas, nagbabaloon yung pregnancy rate in terms of general trend. No? It actually dipped ng konti sa 2021, 2020. So, with that being said, it is imperative that there is a conversation that involves the parents, right? Government has a role, private sector has a role, institutions like hellodoctor.com.ph definitely have a role regarding spreading the right information. But if the parents are heavily resistant, if the school is heavily resistant, if local government is heavily resistant, then the effectiveness of that will not be that well. So kailangan the way that we frame teaching the use of contraceptives or family planning, two streams. Una, one directed at teaching the parents how to teach. Second, teaching those who are actually young people themselves. So those are two streams na kailangan i-approach natin, and they must be done in the context of it being a regular human activity.
Doc V, baka you wanna add anything?
Yeah, and I think one of the things that we also have to consider when we want to start the conversation is we encourage them to ask questions. Kaya nga sabi nila, no, wag mahiyang magtanong.
Yes.
And because children are naturally curious. And there's that sort of stigma, no? Palaging when we talk about sexual and reproductive health, merong wall that we have to acknowledge na nandyan siya. And not just acknowledge, no, we also have to break down that wall for children to be able to, or for adolescents, no, to be able to freely normalize or freely ask questions about sexual and reproductive health, because during this time they are extra curious about their bodies, because there are a lot of changes that are happening that they might be overwhelmed about, no? And without proper guidance, they might explore into unfamiliar territories, which might be dangerous. So if we want to be able to normalize the conversation, no, let's invite them, no, to ask questions about it. O may tanong ka ba? Huwag kang mahiya, no? Kasi minsan meron dong factor of them being afraid na baka pagalitan sila, baka they might be shamed about it, they might be judged about it. And this is something that we would want to eliminate, no? Kasi we don't foster conversation pag ganyan. If ever mahirap yung mag-open up sila, no, we can actually ask or invite them, no. Marami po tayong articles sa Hello Doctor which we can actually share to our friends who are, adolescent, to our family members, no. And we have to normalize the conversation about it, because if left unguided, hindi talaga sila they might explore, and they might get in trouble because of it.
Yeah. Oh, it's still a slippery slope, right?
Yeah.
It's still
For young
quite tricky for young people. I think even for parents, had to be it. It's culture, eh.
Culture.
Well,
Yeah,
I
it's culture.
I remember before, no, bawal pag-usapan. May that sense of being bawal. Probably
The
because
birds and
it's
the bees.
natural. Yeah, pero nakakatuwa na, we are advancing from that.
That's true.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Social
so
media plays. Go ahead, Kai.
No, kasi lahat naman ng magulang naging teenager din, di ba? Lahat naman ng mga magulang naging adolescent din. So, mga nanay, tatay, tingin-tingin tayo sa salamin, di ba? Saan natin unang narinig ang salitang ibabanto ng kumo?
Nung panahon
Diba?
natin.
understand, no, na parang yung
Yeah.
yes, Miss Bianchi. Yung gusto lang ng mga magulang natin ay hindi tayo, we won't commit the same mistakes that they did, no? Syempre. But we have to we have to extend our understanding also. Naging teenager din naman tayo before.
Correct.
No? Minsan, yung iba sa atin hindi nag-progress from the teenager mentality. But we have to guide them also to be able to make the right decisions as well.
Okay. Thank you, Doc Dex G and Doc V. Siguro yung role ni Justin dito, no, aside from being our resident sunflower sa Hello Doctor. Justin, what is your reaction or what are your insights, diba? Since you have a lot of female friends also, diba? Syempre, and you know, how did your parents then talk to you about reproductive health? I'm curious. Usapan natin si Ma'am Cora. Na member din ng Hello Doctor team, no? She's one of our Filipino
Yes.
editors.
Hello, mommy. In terms of conversations about reproductive health or sexual wellness, obviously, or siguro very traditional Filipino family din naman kami. So, never din napag-usapan. So, wala yung conversation about birds or bees and flowers or whatever euphemism na ginagamit. Tapos lumaki din ako na, nag-high school ako sa Catholic school, college sa Catholic school. So, medyo iwas din yung sa mga ganong klaseng conversations. Although we talked about sexual wellness, reproductive health sa health classes, sa science, ganyan. Pero yung like what to use or what to do or paano ba talaga yung ano ba yung ginagawa when you are engaging sa ganong klaseng like sa sexual intercourse. Walang ganong conversation. So naging aware lang ako, especially tsaka din sa mga peers ko, sa friends ko, na parang feeling ko sabay-sabay din kaming naging aware nung nag-college na syempre nandun yung time na nag-explore kayo, hinahanap mo yung sarili mo, hinahanap mo yung identity mo, sino ba ako, anong gusto ko. So doon na nag-start yun. Siguro ang napakaswerte ko lang din na I was surrounded by good people na walang kumbaga, although lahat kami nangangapa sa ganung klaseng conversation, nag-share kami ng experiences. Kumbaga, wala din naman sa amin na like nabuntis ng super aga or parang kumbaga lahat naging responsible din. Pero syempre, 'di ba, hindi naman lahat privileged na magkaroon ng ganong klaseng circle. Tapos given pa nga the fact na traditional Filipino family, most of us yun nasa ganong sitwasyon. Tapos nasa Catholic school kami na yung medyo nakakalungkot, 'di ba, na parang kahit minsan yung Tagalog words or Filipino words ng private parts nakakatawa for us na parang never na normalize yung mga ganong salita. Pero kapag kasi sinabi mo siya sa English or yung scientific term, okay lang. Pero pagka Filipino na conversation, nakakatawa, ganyan. Usually nagsa-start yung mga ganong klaseng conversation sa parang very light. Tapos parang ngayon lang din, itong medyo nung nag-work na ako, nung nahanap ko na yung sarili ko, dun ko nakita yung importance ng pagko-foster ng safe spaces, ng mga ganong klaseng conversation. Na ako, alam naman ng friends ko na very, kumbaga yung passion ko when it comes to that kind of conversation, hindi lang dahil okay siyang gawin, gusto ko siyang gawin, yung ganun. Pero dahil gusto ko ding i-open yung conversation, gusto ko magkaroon ng safe space within our circle na kaya namin pag-usapan yun. Kaya namin pag-usapan yung experiences namin. Bad experiences, good experiences, everything. Na hindi siya nakakatawa. Kasi totoo siya eh. Part siya ng buhay ng tao. Kailangan siya, isa sa mga kailangan ng tao. Tapos, na hindi siya nakakatawang pag-usapan. Kasi hindi naman siya, seryoso siyang topic. So, ayun. Pero yun Kai.
And thank you, Justin. Yeah,
Ang
sa
ganda
friends
ng
talaga
sinabi
eh.
ni Sir Justin about it. When you talk about it, you are safe here, it's okay, you won't be judged, no?
Oo.
Kasi nakaka-shock din naman talaga. Yeah, I remember I was a young girl knowing what the act was, sexual intercourse, and I was shocked. No? Parang, that happens. Parang, I was very curious kasi I don't know if you guys went through this curiosity of how babies were made, no? Yung alam natin, a
Yeah.
stork brings them, di ba? Pinapadala siya ng stork sa atin from the heavens. But knowing how it was before, there was that notion of being shocked about it, and the role of the family, the people around us, the school is especially important in easing the children, the adolescents into it, because I think this Bianchi mentioned something about influences, no, in our pop culture, in the media, print, wherever, no, about the act itself, no. And I remember being a little girl being asked to cover the eyes, no, when it happens. I don't understand why, but I know that's not good. um Children, are smart, are really smart. No, they are naturally curious. They would want to explore. No, and sometimes when it doesn't make sense to them, they would want to experiment. So it's good that we explain everything. Why do we need to do this? No, why you need to be able to ask questions if you're not familiar. Kasi maganda yung sinabi ni Sir Justin na when he was eased into it, you were safe when you talk about it here. Hindi ka papagalitan, hindi ka i-judge. So yeah, that's very, very important. Yeah.
To have that support, no? Napaka-important nun. Kasi iba-iba naman yung
Yeah.
source, no? Ng education natin.
I
On that
think
topic.
Justin has friends who have questions.
Yeah.
Are we pulling them
Yeah,
in, Justin?
I'm just asking them pa na sumama sa
Alright.
atin sa live. Pero may mga nagsasend na ng questions din sa Facebook. Silang dalawa yun actually.
Oh. Sige, while waiting for them, let's talk about mental health naman. Kasi yun yung isa sa bining up din ni Doc Dex, no, Doc V, nung tinanong namin, ano ba yung karaniwang sakit ng mga babae? Diba? With all the advancements in science and medicine and yung progress sana sa thinking, no? So, mental health. Ano pa ba ang meron sa ating kultura? Siguro, hate na hate ko yung naririnig na word na Messiah. Yung lumaki ako, no? Siyempre, ako yung pinakamatanda dito, di ba? Pero nung lumaki ako, di ba? Sayad. Siyempre, baliw. Lalo na, retard, di ba? Abno. No? Yung mga ganon na ginagamit sa mga either may mental disorder, di ba? Or even our brothers and sisters who are suffering, who live with Down syndrome. They're not suffering from it, they live with Down syndrome. Parang, bakit kaya culturally, ganito tayo? Bakit kaya culturally, mahilig tayong mag-label? Parang ba kayong alam na explanation dyan, Doc V, Doc Dex? Parang, does it help the labeler feel better? Parang ano yung effect niya? Why do we label? Why do we like to kind of look down It looks down on the others Is there like an explanation culturally or even clinically sa ganyang
Yeah.
behavior?
Oo. Maybe delving into it, no, in terms of human behavior. One of the books that I've read before, what struck me until now, no, yung sabi doon, we fear what we do not understand. No? So in our attempt to understand something, we tend to label it. No? For us to be able to have control over that something that we do not understand. So yung usapin natin tungkol sa mental health, mental illnesses, no, have been gaining importance just now. No? So before, we had trouble, or at least those who are not not necessarily in the medical field, might have difficulties understanding, and it's not their fault. Kasi access might not have been that available, no? Access to information about it might not have been available. Hindi pa ganun siya pinag-uusapan. It wasn't still normalized. No? So it was something that they do not understand. And if we don't understand something, our tendency is to be afraid of it. No? And for us to gain control, no, of that fear, para for us to really, hindi tayo magpatalo doon sa fear na yon of the unknown, we tend to put labels, that would guard us from that vulnerability. So that may be one, no, being philosophical about it, but it really stems from what we're exposed to in our environment, what the media, what pop culture dictates, what are the current norms, and this is the reason why we want to encourage, people having more access to medically verified information, especially about mental health and sexual reproductive health. That's why we're very happy, no, that we're partnered. The Alaga Health is partnered with Hello Doctor. Marami po silang mga information about it, no. That's kasi pag hindi po natin alam, no, normal po na matakot tayo about it. Pero yung Hello Doctor po nandyan to help guide us, to understand better what are the things around us that we do not understand. For example, mental illnesses, depression related to discrimination, gender discrimination, any matter or any issues about sexual and reproductive health. Nandun po yung Hello Doctor, and of course nandun po kaming mga health professionals yung in Alaga Health to help guide you and explain to you what these are, para you don't have that fear of not understanding what these topics are and what are the repercussions of yung mga issues na ganito. Doc Dex, probably you have something that you want to share as well sa ganyan. Kasi you work a lot with adolescents, with families. So as a commissioner, probably you have something that you can share also.
Sure. We're in a society right now wherein we are tolerant and are somehow welcoming of the notion of cancel culture, which is very toxic and very difficult when put in the wrong context. Because it has good points. It can do a lot of good, but at the same time mishandled, it can actually be transfigured into a form of bullying. And if we're going to go into the psychology of bullying, ang daming reasons as to why people, as mentioned by Ms. Kai, are doing things that would quote-unquote take down other people. Maraming reasons dyan. That can be a form of projection, meaning what they find as deficiencies in themselves, they project onto others so that they can somehow purge them out of themselves. Yeah. Then you also have the notion of deflecting or seeking attention. So many reasons as to why people behave in a negative manner towards other people. And all of these are considered as unhealthy coping mechanisms. Again, these are unhealthy coping mechanisms that cause more harm than good. And that just highlights that there is still a need for more people to find and actually do healthier ways to cope. Kasi they don't find ways for them to better communicate with the people that they want, or probably to express their frustrations, or maybe even address their problems, that they turn to these unhealthy coping mechanisms that indirectly and directly affect the lives of other people. And from the recipient's perspective, yung tumatanggap ng bullying, yung tumatanggap ng pang-aaway, panglalait, etc., that can pose a trigger for the cycle of violence and the cycle of bullying to keep going. And this is something that is also very prominent within the fight for women's rights and children's rights.
Okay. Grabe. Hindi ko in-expect na magiging ganito kaseryoso yung chikahan natin today. And I think nag-a-adjust yung ano natin, no? Konti lang yung kasama natin ngayon sa Kumu, pero maraming kasama sa Facebook. So, baka nag-a-adjust yung followers natin sa Kumu. Sorry guys, sana next week maka-adjust na rin kayo. Gusto namin
Yes,
kayong isama sa
yun.
kwentuhan natin sa Kumu sa Doc next week, okay? I think Justin has friends who have questions. Why don't we bring them in? Go ahead, Justin.
Yes. So may question po si Mika, isa sa mga Facebook viewer natin and one of my friends. So, hi Mika!
Hello,
Magandang
magandang
tanghali.
tanghali. Magandang
Hello,
tanghali sa
Mika.
lahat. Hello po sa mga panelists natin. So, ako po si Mika Abon. Ako po ay isang gender advocate. So, kanina kasi pinag-uusapan natin kung gaano katabu yung usapang sexuality at reproductive health. So, ang gusto kong tanungin, no, kay Doc V, sa inyo lahat, paano ba tayo makapag-foster ng healthy conversations na child-friendly, no, doon sa mga minors, sa mga minor de edad na against yung mga magulang. So, kumbaga kasi ako nung bata ako, mai-share ko lang na kapag nag-grocery kami ng nanay ko, merong mga parang frenzy condoms doon. Yung mga makulay na condoms doon sa malapit sa cashier, 'di ba? So lagi ko siyang tinatanong, ano ba 'to? Ano ba 'tong mga makukulay na ano na 'to? Candy ba 'yan? Pwede ba akong bumili? Kasi sobrang colorful niya, alam mo, sobrang ano siya, attractive siya sa mata ng mga bata. Pero hindi niya sinasagot yung tanong ko, tas pinapagalitan niya ako. Ang sinasabi niya, wag mo nang tatanungin ulit yung ano bagay na yan, ganyan. So, tumanda na ako nung nalaman ko yung na-condom pala yung frenzy condoms. Yan. So, walang nagturo sa akin, kumbaga, kasi babae ako, tapos walang nagturo sa akin kung ano to, paano to gawin, ganyan. Sobrang tabu talaga ng topic ng sexuality, ganyan. So, lumaki ako na hindi rin na-explore yung sarili ko. Now, ang tanong ko po sa inyo ay paano ba tayo makapag-foster ng healthy conversation sa mga bata kung yung mga magulang nila ay against dito?
Ang ganda ng tanong ni Miss Mika, no? Hi, Miss Mika, no? Nakaka-relate ako to you because just to share also, when I do grocery with my parents before, no, I would also see those, yung very colorful, may mga flavors and all that. And ako pa naman, yung mahilig sa sweets. I have a sweet tooth. So, when I was little, I always have Kit Kat. So sabi ko, bakit hindi ako binibigyan yan? It's also candy, it's also colorful, and it has yung iba, di ba, may mga chocolate flavor, yung iba may mga ano. Parang I remember saying before na, Mama, I want that because that's also candy. Kasi I'd always have Kit Kat eh. So parang there was that notion of yun nga, it being taboo na hindi yan, bawal yan. Sabi ko, bakit bawal? Candy lang naman yan. So I thought it was just, unhealthy, not knowing na it was ano pala, those were condoms. So that was a good question because we don't blame anyone, no? We don't blame any generation for that dearth, no, dun sa communication natin. Parang may gap, no? There's also a reason why our elders have that sort of taboo, parang bawal pag-usapan. Probably also because how they grew up, their culture as well, no? What's important, no, for us to foster that healthy conversation is to first talk to the parents, make them realize what's at stake when they don't talk about it, when they see it, when they label it as a taboo, no, dun sa mga children nila. It's a way also of rethinking sexual education, no, na the focus is not only on educating children but also educating the parents as well. So if the parents are against it, no, there might be a way for us to talk to them first. Kasi pag ibabalik natin sa condition or sa situation in the family, syempre dun sila umuwi. No? They will always be exposed to that. No? Pag bibalik natin siya sa condition na there is still that sort of closeness, no, or not being not being inviting or not being welcoming to that idea, mako-confuse lang lalo yung mga bata, no? Kasi iba yung sinasabi ng parents, iba yung sinasabi ng school, ng mga groups, the advocacy groups that I am currently in, no? So it's always important for us include um, the parents in the conversation and in our initiatives, no, to educate, no, and for us to be able to connect well with the children as well, no. We um, put it in terms of priority to make them feel safe when they talk about it, no? Na hindi sila i-judge, especially since they are constantly exposed to that notion of it being bawal, na baka pagalitan sila. And we talk to the parents about it as well, na these are what is currently happening, ito yung mga tanong, no? And it's not necessarily malicious yung intent nyo, no. And that's a way for us to work together in terms of, fostering conversation, especially when the family is against, talking about it. But Doc Dex, ano yung ginagawa niyo sa Popcom, since you are the primary government agency for that?
Hi, thank you for that. So, one of the things that I would love to highlight regarding this is that there should be sensitivity as to how we conduct the communication. Because communication is key. And what I saw when I was a new one in Popcom, no, is that the communication methods may need improvement and tweaking. Because in general, when we talk about sexual health and reproductive health, because it was so taboo, ayaw pag-usapan yan. Bawal. Mga bata, close your eyes. Close your ears. Bawal yan. May marinig ka, bawal talaga. Di ba? The parents talagang overprotect. Ay, naku, tong batang to. Ganyan.
Ganyan, no?
Exactly. Yan nga ganun. Nakatakot na ng mata. Pero, the thing is, now there is somehow that imbibed notion of it being very preachy. Now, when you talk about sexual health and reproductive health as a parent, naku, feeling nila pinagagalitan sila. Feeling nila na it is something that they did wrong with or wrong about. Kasi yung tone, and since hindi siya ginagawang part of normal conversation, it feels so uneasy and awkward for people to engage in it, no? I saw this phrase on one of my favorite shows. It's called Modern Family, wherein they said that ang magandang advice, and I actually agree, act like a parent, talk like a peer. It's called parenting, yeah, di ba? Kasi you use
Doc Dex.
yeah, still the so, act like a parent, talk like a peer, parenting. Kasi ang hirap na magkakaintindihan kayo na, anak, ang parte ng katawan natin ay ganito. At pag kayo ay gumawa ng ganyan, ito ang mangyayari. Napaka-formal, napaka-awkward, you gotta get with the lingo. And this is why being able to understand where they're coming from, what language they use, is very effective. And that's why for me personally, I have been heavily pushing and lobbying for government agencies like Popcom or anyone who talks about health, particularly if you are targeting young people or particularly the younger demographic, the language that you use, the way you construct your sentences, you create your publication materials, they have to be age appropriate. Because again, I'm spoiling my defense, but based on what we saw, no? Based on what we saw in terms of the study, young people will really not read your very long infographic or delve into the details of that for a long period of time, because right now they're in a society, they're in a time where they're most engaged with 30-second videos or probably a very quick live stream of someone playing a game on Kumu or probably a quick show that they can watch. All of these things, we have to adapt and change the communication method that we use. So it doesn't mean you go to your kid and say, yo pare, that's not no, that sounds really awkward and weird. You have to, of course, approach it still with a bit of sensitivity and respect, but very much veer away from sounding very preachy. Hindi yung parang kinakastigo mo sila, and try to make it as part of regular conversation. Kasi the way that we try to destigmatize mental health before, somehow it has made strides. Before, pag sinabing mental health, naku, may sayad ni si Lucinto, etc. And it was something that's very, very bad. Considered siya as taboo. But because we tried to make it as part of regular conversation, we still have a lot of work to do there. But there was a huge improvement. And hopefully we can do it similarly for sexual health and reproductive health, lalong-lalo na sa mga bata.
#parenting.
Parenting, yes. Yun ang keyword.
Yes. So, yes. So, thank you very much, Mika, for
Thank you,
that
Mika.
question. Napakagandang question. Napakagandang insights from Dr. B and Doc Dex. So, ayun, mag-lunch ka na, Besh. Thank you.
Happy lunch,
Thank you,
Mika.
everyone. Happy lunch.
Thank you, Mika. Thank you for supporting. Ayan, so ano ba yan? Paano ba yan? 1 p.m. na.
Ang bilis.
Ang bilis.
Hindi ko na malaya.
Sure.
Pero bago tayo mag-close, Justin, maybe let's take a minute to share with our viewers on Pumu and on Facebook our special International Women's Day 2022 in Focus page, no?
Yes.
It's a page you see on Hello Doctor po tuwing merong special health day o may topics kaming gustong i-highlight. Pero in essence, para po siyang microsite, no? So pagpasok ninyo, bukod sa nandito yung mga tools na pwedeng gamitin ng mga kababaihan para ma-check ang kanilang health, ayun po lahat ng tools, no? Sabi nga namin, take a few minutes for self-care, sis. No? Mag-click lang kayo dyan sa mga tools para ma-check nyo yung health nyo. Tapos dalhin nyo kay Doc V and Doc Dex sa alagahealth.com para ma-interpret nila kasama kayo yung results. No? And then we do have quotes there from the Power Women that Bianchi brought to our platform. Very inspiring. When you click on that, you'll see their quote on why women should stand strong together. From Miss Christine Bersola Babao to Miss Jessica Soho, lahat panalo, and in between, all amazing actresses also. So, ang mga topics natin sa ating microsite for IWB ay understanding women's health, no? Menstruation, pregnancy, and menopause, and self-care and self-love. So, parating na po yung mga hero content natin na walang kasama ang walang iba, kundi ang beloved din na psychiatrist ni Doc Dex G at ni Doc V, si Doc Joan Reparial. So, coming na po yan. It's a series of 5 episodes, short 10-minute episodes on topics for women's mental health. No? Based na rin sa data, no, na nakikita namin kung ano yung hinahanap talaga ng mga kababaihan. At yung mga support groups sa mga babae, nandyan po. Ano pa ba? So, kung meron pong kulang, no, meron din po kaming women's health na category sa Hello Doctor. And then kung any other ideas that you have to share with us, please feel free po to message us on Facebook and Instagram or dito sa Kumu. Yung viewer natin last week who asked 2 questions about abuse, magkakaroon na po tayo ng bagong column sa Hello Doctor, yung Dear Doctor. He said, she said po siya ni na Doc Dex at ni Doc V. So, ate girl who asked your questions last week, abangan mo lang yung mga sagot nila. It's coming this month. And yeah, that's it. Women's Day na. Ang bilis pala. Women's Day is March 2.
Yes,
Maaga siya.
6 days from now, International Women's
Yeah.
Day.
Yeah. So to close our FB live today, siguro Bianchi and Justin, what did you learn today?
Ang dami actually. And ang dami pa natin pwede i-discuss, di ba? Siguro yung common thread na na-notice ko, we keep coming back dun po sa kultura natin. Kasi it's something we can all relate to eh. Whether it's reproductive health or mental health. Culturally kasi, not just women eh, even men, as Filipinos, parang in-expect tayo to figure things out or i-endure quietly certain things as we're growing up. But it's important to foster yung healthy communication. Yung to speak without shame, whether it's about your questions about sex or your concerns about your mental health. Yung maging assertive pagdating sa choices mo. Sabi nga nila, di ba, our body, our choice. Di ba? And it's good that help is always there. There will always be sources to guide you. Nag-evolve na because during our time, it was mostly mga magazines or TV. But now there's a wealth of information online accessible to you. Sabi nga lang ni Kai, just be careful to make sure na good influence yun. Whether if you can't talk to your parents about it, just seek out a safe space where you can ask questions, learn more, di ba? Visit hellodoctor.com.ph and alagahealth.com.ph for info and services. Of course, andito po kami lagi to help you. Salamat po. Justin?
Yes. Ako naman, feeling ko, so madami lagi ako natututunan sa conversations natin with Doc Dex and Doc V. Siguro ang pinaka-highlight nung conversation ngayon is the importance of fostering safe spaces. So, very important, very crucial na magkaroon tayo ng safe spaces na para kung saan pwede natin pag-usapan yung mga feeling natin, mga bagay na taboo sa ating culture, especially yung mga bagay na related sa ating health, sa ating pagkatao. So, by allowing people to communicate freely on their experiences, kumbaga may magta-times yung effect na yun. Kumbaga, pag confident na akong i-share yung experience ko, gagawin ko rin siya sa ibang tao. Tapos eventually yung people outside of my circle will be also confident to share their experiences. So through that conversations and then sharing of experiences, nabavalidate yung mga tama at maling perception natin sa mga ganong klaseng topics. So very important yung mga ganong klaseng conversation sa bahay, sa mga kaibigan natin. So although we have a very conservative culture, well, kailangan nating maging open sa mga ganong klaseng bagay. Kasi kumbaga mas malaki yung masamang epekto nung pag-withheld ng ganong klaseng conversation at ganong klaseng information kesa dun sa shame na unang natanim sa utak natin. Mas grabe yung magiging masamang effect nun in the long run kung patuloy nating gagawing katatawanan or gagawing hindi seryoso yung mga ganong klaseng topics at conversation. So thank you very much, Doc Dex and Doc V, for a very good conversation this afternoon.
Okay, your final words for this episode, Doc.
Alam na ni Miss Kai no, na ako muna before Doc Dex. Alright, so again, no, this was a wonderful conversation that we need to have actually. No? Hindi ko nga namalayan, it's already 1 o'clock. So what a good way to pair our meals, our lunchtime with good conversations as well. But yung siguro yung before we continue with the rest of our day, before we leave, one of the things that I wanted to emphasize always no, is be open to asking questions. Huwag po tayong maghiyang magtanong, di lamang po sa mga kabataan natin, no? Pero para rin po dun sa mga parents who are watching us right now, nanay, tatay, tito, tita, lolo, lola, na nanonood po sa atin ngayon, pag meron po tayong hindi naintindihan, no? About sexual and reproductive health, and especially when there's something that we think that might have been different in terms of our understanding no before no about sexual and reproductive health, at sa mga kabataan po natin na nanonood, pag meron po kayong mga tanong no anything that you're curious about, please don't hesitate to ask no. Meron pong pwedeng tanungan no, meron pong pwedeng meron pong handang sumagot ng tanong natin. Nandyan po yung mga articles ng hellodoctor.com.ph. Marami po sila, no? And they're very informative and they're medically verified information about sexual and reproductive health, no? At let's open conversations, more conversations about sexual and reproductive health, especially in our communities, in our families, no? isa na namang magandang conversation ang nangyari, no? And hopefully we are looking forward to more of this, no? Dito lamang po sa Kumusta Doc every Wednesday with Miss Kai, Miss Bianchi, and Sir Justin, and of course, Dr. Pure Energy, Doc Dex, who will give us his final words. So Doc Dex, go ahead.
Hi. So again, thank you to everyone who's watching live on Kume and also on Facebook. So thank you for being part of Kumusta Doc every Wednesday. We'll see you all here next week. And as always, perhaps one of my takeaway message for all of you would be the best way for us to celebrate International Women's Day is to celebrate it every day. So whether you are a mother, a sister, a daughter, or a partner, there will always be a place for you with Alaga Health. And of course, hello, doctor. See you all next week. Bye!
Thank you. Bye, everyone.
Thank you, everyone. Bye.